Hey guys, Yama Killer here, back again with another What Decks You Should Be Playing this weekend. Now, we're going to be going over the 5 major formats that are going to be played this weekend because it is Showcase Weekend. These means this is a once-a-month occasion on Magic Online where Showcase events are played for a MOCS spot, Magic Online Championship Series. You top 8 one of the events, you get to play in another event, you win that event, you qualify for the 8-player MOCS, get a lot of money. So these are some pretty important events with some pretty big prizes. So let us go over the 5 main constructed formats that are going to be on in these events. We got Standard, Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, Vintage. Now, I have not been playing that much of a couple of these formats, Standard and Modern, Standard and Pioneer in particular. But I've been talking to people, as a lot of my friends and people that I talk to about Magic are playing these showcase events, so I'm going to relay what they have been telling me about the format. Now, before we start, as well, if you like these videos, you like anything I do on this channel, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitch and Twitter in the description below. You'll see me play these showcases this weekend and play big events basically every single day of the week. Now, let's get into it. I'm going to start off with Standard. There's a good, very, very good Standard player I know named Ghoul Dukat, along with another player, Final Nub, been doing very well. One of them even got $2,000 in the Arena Open this last week. They've mainly been telling me that Gruul is the best deck, and basically doing anything else is a mistake. You can possibly build a deck that's 50-50, maybe even favored against Gruul, but you're sacrificing a lot against the decks that are not Gruul. So why do that when you can just play Gruul, be favored against a lot of decks, and be 50-50 against a lot of decks, basically have no bad matchups, and just play a good deck. So that is why if I'm going to be playing Standard, I'm going to be playing Gruul. This deck is a little bit, or this deck list is a little bit old. I would look at the MPL deck lists if you're looking for very specific deck lists for Gruul, see how people have tuned their decks for this metagame. But the archetype that I'd be going for in Standard is Gruul. I think anything else is probably a mistake from what I've been listening to. So that's my take on Standard. Let us move on into Pioneer. Another format I have not been playing all that much, but the deck I'm going to personally be playing, Jeskai Luka. I like this deck a lot. I played it in the past. You've got Transmogrify basically for a lower costed Luka. Luka entering the battlefield, after it's done its one thing, almost never gets to do its thing again, or it really matters. So having more copies of Luka essentially in Transmogrify, as well as being able to do a turn earlier, is I think very powerful. So this is a controlling role as well that you can play. I expect a lot of burn decks, and I like this deck against the burn decks as well. So I'm going to be going with Jeskai Luka. If you want to go more of an aggro route, I've been told that burn this low to the ground Swift Spear, Gitu Lava Runner, Viashino Pyromancer. You got to also play Eidolon, and Luris in the sideboard has been criminally underplayed and did incredibly well this weekend. So if you want to be playing aggro, I would highly suggest this. Pretty easy to play, pretty straightforward, burn your opponent out, not much to it. Now if you want to be playing combo, I would suggest Lotus Field combo or Oops All Spells, both pretty good. But I would personally be going with Lotus Field because pretty hard to interact with. People need to have very specific interaction, which they don't necessarily have in the format right now, especially when they need to be dealing with 2 different combo decks that attack on 2 different axes. But if I were to play a combo deck, I would be playing this. So there's your combo, control, aggro. A mid-range deck like Sultai is possible to play. I'm not quite sure how it would play. Maybe you play something like Nivtolite as your mid-range deck. You have Omnath, which is cool. Bring Delight, Niv Mizzet. You got some interesting sideboard cards and main deck cards that you can play. Play against combo, aggro, and control. But personally, I'd be looking at those 3 decks, and right now I'm going to be playing Jeskai Luka just because I have played it in the past, and I'd like to have some familiarity, especially since I haven't played the format very much. Now, let us move on to Modern. Now, my current choice of what I'm going to play, I'm going to be playing Mono Red Prowess. A lot of people have kind of been not liking Prowess decks as of late, although I think this deck plays particularly well. Has game against Uro decks, has game against the other Prowess decks, has some game against combo in the form of Blood Moon being able to cheese and some sideboard cards, and pro-red creatures that a lot of people have been playing, not actually that great against you because you have cards like Blast Zone in your sideboard. You have cards like Bone Crusher Giant to push through the pro-red creatures. I've beaten Auriok Champions, Burnington Forge Tenders. I've beaten many, many cards that are supposed to beat me. Dragon's Claw, all that stuff. You have incredible grind with Light Up the Stage, Seasoned Pyromancer, Obosh as your companion, and Bone Crusher Giant all being great 2-for-1s. You even have some Cycle Lands in Sunbaked Canyon and Fiery Islet. This is my deck of choice. I have a lot of experience with Prowess decks. I like the Prowess decks. I've done particularly well in prelims and challenges with the Prowess deck, so this is going to be my choice. Although I don't necessarily think it is the stone best deck in the format. What I think is the best deck in the format is some variation on 4-color Uro control. You get to play 4 Uros, Omnat, Red and 6, the best removal spells in the format in Path and Bolt. You get to play some good counter spells in Cryptic Command, Force Negation, and Mana Leak. You kind of get to do all the things you want. You also get to play Field of the Dead, another incredibly powerful busted card in Modern right now. I think this basically gets to do everything that it wants to do, and basically only gets held back when it has weird mana draws. So I think this is currently the best deck in the format, although there is ways to attack it in the form of Mono Red Aggro or Mono Red Prowess with Blood Moons, in the form of some Titan decks can have some reasonable game against it. Like, there's decks that can do fine against it, although I think this is the best deck in the format and covers a lot of the angles in the best way. Now, there's some other decks you could play combo in some variation, Ad Nauseam or Neo Brand, to really crush the Prowess decks that are going around. You could be playing Rakdos Death Shadow, very reasonable, lots of discard spells. You can go longer sometimes with Kroxa and Luris out of the sideboard. You also have decks like Mono White, which some people have been claiming is not very good. I have had a lot of struggles with it in the past with many different decks, as well as it doing really well in top 8ing both of the Modern challenges and another player even winning one of the Modern challenges with it last week. There's a lot of different ways you can go in Modern. I think there's a lot of different Tier 1, Tier 1.5, Tier 2 decks that can all do well this weekend. Here are some of them that you can play. You can also play a Titan deck, White-Green Titan, Amulet Titan. All I think are pretty reasonable to play right now. But I think if you're truly trying to win, and that's your only goal, and you have some experience with these blue pile decks in Modern, I would highly suggest playing 4-color Uro. But whatever archetype you have the most experience with, find the best deck within that archetype and play it, because I think there are many Tier 1 decks within many different archetypes right now in Modern. Now, let us move on to Legacy. Legacy, the deck I'm going to be playing a little bit off the beaten path. I'm going to be playing Mono Blue Karn Echoes. You got combo of Lion's Eye Diamond, Echo of Eons, Narset. You have the combo of Emery, LED, Echo. You get to play Chalice decks, which sometimes you just get a Chalice, like, okay, Chalice on 1. Do I win the game? You also get to play some powerful cards in Urza and Karn the Great Creator with lots of silver bullets in the sideboard. You even get to board into some Force of Wills in the combo matchup as well when you need that little extra protection. So this is the deck that I'm going to be playing. Now, I'm not claiming this deck is Tier 1. This deck is Tier 2 at best, but I have a lot of fun playing it, and I don't particularly like the play patterns as well as the long games that can be drawn out by what I think are the best decks, which I will show in a second. And this deck plays to my playstyle, and I think I'm going to be double/triple queuing on that Sunday. So this is a deck that I'm going to be playing both for fun and I think for efficiency in a multi-queue. Now, what decks do I think are the best in Legacy? 2 decks, very particular. Snoko in some form of Arkham's Astrolabe control deck with Uro and Oko, Force of Wills, your Ponder, Brainstorm, and you fill out the rest, either some Abrupt Decay, some Assassin's Trophies and Swords as your removal spells, some Jace, some Sylvan Library, some Force of Negation, some ways to protect yourself and such, Plague Engineer, Dead of Winter. Basically, you get to choose how you want to build your removal suite, how you want to build your card advantage suite, but it all really revolves around Arkham's Astrolabe being able to play whatever colors you want throughout the entire time. Now, that I think is one of the best decks. Another one of the best decks I think is also Temur Delver. Just, the classic Delver shell. You get to play your 2-mana Planeswalker and Dreadhorde Arcanist that will continue to get you value every single turn. You get to play Oko, one of the most busted cards. You get to play Daze, Force, and your other Force as ways to protect everything. It kind of just plays like a lot of very efficient creatures, efficient ways to deal with your opponent's threats, and gets to play low mana curve and play everything basically that the high mana curves decks play, while having just very, very efficient things to be doing. I think this and Snoko are the clear 2 best front runners of decks, but in Legacy, many, many different players can do many, many different things and still be successful. Depths, Hogak, Dredge, Sneak and Show, many decks can be doing well in this format. But if I were to be trying to win and even picking up things for the first time, Temur Delver or Snoko is the way that I would go. Let us finish off with Vintage today. Dredge has been doing particularly well in Vintage right now. It's been beating up on all the Jeskai Arcanist decks that have been around. But I think the tides are slowly turning as lots of people are picking up Dredge. A way to combat that is what I'm going to be playing, Sultai Midrange. Now, I don't think this deck is particularly good. Now I'm going to tell you why. Because it doesn't do the great things of Jeskai. It doesn't do the great thing of ancestrally multiple times with Jeskai. It doesn't do the great things that Dredge does, is just killing your opponent on turn 2. It doesn't play Mishra's Workshop. What this deck does have is a great Shops matchup and a great Dredge matchup. Assassin's Trophy, Deathrite Shaman, and some great sideboard cards let you dismantle Bazaar of Baghdad. Basically, your opponent doesn't get to do much with it. And against Shops, you have Collector Oof and Force of Vigor, both incredibly hard cards for your opponent to deal with. And Tarmogoyf solos being able to beat Hollow Ones and random artifact creatures. So, while I don't think this is the best deck, I think this is a very good metagame deck for what I expect a lot of people to play Dredge and Shops, as they're not that experienced. Those decks are relatively easy compared to playing Blue Mirrors. But, do I think this is the best deck? No. This is the deck that I'm going to be playing. But I think a deck that is good for beginners, Dredge, very good. Multiple Bazaar Baghdad, do your thing. Ravager Shops, mull to some form of a lot of mana plus waste tax your opponent plus aggression. And then there's some other decks that I think are very good and somewhat easy to play. Doomsday. Doomsday used to be feared as one of the hardest decks to play. Now Thassa's Oracle, really easy because you don't have to play Laboratory Maniac. The piles are pretty easy. Basically just make Thassa's Oracle, Ancestral Recall, Black Lotus, 2 other cards, doesn't really matter usually, and you just win from there. But there are some other decks you can also be playing. You can play Underworld Breach as another combo control deck. You can play Jeskai Arcanist, just try to Ancestral Recall a bunch so your opponent doesn't get to play the game. And you just have force, interaction, and then eventually win with some Mentor, Arcanist, Lavinia type cards. I think all of these are pretty reasonable to be playing. Vintage is kind of wide open to an extent, and that there's a bunch of different strategies there, Tier 1 to Tier 2. Although they look like they have a lot of the same cards, the gameplay is varied a pretty good chunk. But if you guys are liking the video, we are going to be done here for the day. I went over the 5 main formats. I guess I could go over Pauper a little bit. Pauper, play Tron, it's Tier 0. If you want to play something else, Burn, Boros Aggro, Affinity, all these things are somewhat reasonable. But if you're trying to win, just play Tron. No big deal about that. But thank you guys for watching. I appreciate everyone who watches the videos, likes these videos. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you liked it. Follow me on Twitch and Twitter in the description below, and I'll see you guys on the next video. And if you guys want to watch me play the showcases, I will be streaming them all Saturday and Sunday, and I'll see you guys there. Bye-bye.